So as people are logging in here, we are going to get started on our third webinar in the encounter phase of our Nurturing Joy initiative. This webinar is entitled Telephone Best Practices for Encounter. And Rob and Liz from our own IT department are going to be facilitating today's webinar. I'll introduce them more in a minute. My name is Claire Bondi. I'm the Director of Lay Ecclesial Ministry and Ongoing Formation for the Diocese of London, and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. Let us begin with prayer. Let's see if I can get this to work today. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Send forth your Spirit, O Lord, and fill the hearts of your people with an ardent desire to follow Jesus, to be his missionary disciples. Fill us with joy and a desire to know your word. May we boldly proclaim the good news to others, for when we help others to know that God loves them, they will know true happiness. Fill us with a deep desire for the Eucharist. May we recognize Jesus in the proclamation of the scriptures and in the breaking of the bread. For when we are united with Jesus, joy is constantly born anew. Fill us with the true love of neighbor. May we seek opportunities for reconciliation and with big hearts serve those in need. For in serving them, we know we are serving your Son. With the help of the Holy Spirit, may we commit ourselves to loving you and doing your will. We make this prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen. And St. Clair, pray for us. I definitely had to get that in there because it is my feast day today. So, all right, I'm going to spotlight our two presenters for today. We have Rob Schonberger and Liz Wilson. And Rob is the Director for Information Technology for the Diocese, now IT, used to be ISS, but we're now using the general term that most other places use of IT, and oversees the IT department providing technology solutions to support the work that we do each and every day. Liz is the Diocesan Information Technology Service Coordinator, so say that 3 times fast. And one of her primary roles is to oversee the phone system, particularly the VoIP system, voice over IP system, that many of our parishes use. So I welcome Rob and Liz, and I'm going to turn things over to you.
Great, thank you, Claire. I'll begin, and grateful for this opportunity to share some of our information about our phone system. And I guess just as a note, I think approximately 90% of our parishes and families are on the diocesan VoIP system, with those remaining to be scheduled to come on. So that's really encouraging and allows us to really take advantage of a centralized VoIP system for our diocese. So with today's session, Nurturing Joy, this is about encounter. And we want to try to make some connections between how the telephone systems can help with encounters. I mean, it's fairly clear. We're receiving calls all the time. But what can we do to improve those encounters, make them welcoming, and so on? Next slide, Liz. So these next 3 slides are reminders that I needed, and so I share them because they helped me come up with a framework for how we can use the phone system as a tool with respect to encounters. And so I needed to hear these words again, so I thought I'd share this and this perspective. So what are we commanded to do? I'm sure we all know Matthew 28. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always until the end of the age. And that command requires encounter. And so with that command in mind, we go to the next one, Liz, and it's, so how do we do this? And I'm really grateful to Claire and Cassandra and her team for coming up with this framework so we can practically think about how to obey this command and with nurturing in a joyful, nurturing way. And today we're going to focus on encountering, as we've said, in particular with respect to the phone systems. So encountering all people in our family of parishes and invite them to a relationship with Jesus. And these things can be translated into very practical encounters. So we're going to focus on the phone system and how we can help with that. And you'll see this is not a checklist of, okay, if you do this, if you do this, if you do this, your encounters will get better. Part of it is entering into a conversation with the staff at the families of parishes so we can better configure our phone systems to meet the needs that you have within the families. Okay, thank you, Liz. Next. So the last thing I thought about was our way of being. And these are from the Synod listening sessions. These are not my thoughts. These are things that I learned from those sessions. And it really helped me consider how we could use the tools at our hand. And again, in this example with the phone systems. So the things that I heard at the listening session was be a listening church, a welcoming church, provide excellent customer service, customer care. And there may be some reaction to the word customer, but really, I think and you'll hear it throughout the presentation, but what we really mean is everyone that we encounter, all people that we encounter, that we provide excellent care. It's a little bit easier and more intuitive to label it customer service and care. So that's what we mean by that. Become a caring community. And the qualifying note here is that people should not feel anonymous. They should always feel welcome. And we all know this, but I needed this reminder. Anticipate spiritual needs. So how can we set up systems so that we can be in touch with someone after the death of a spouse, for example? And these last two bullets really, for me, is what drove it home as benchmarks of a welcoming community. So a parish must be a welcoming family home. And that was from our Saint Pope John Paul II. And everyone belongs, no matter the complications in their life, and they must know that they belong. Our world excludes, and we must include. No one is here to pass a test. So with that framework, with that sort of frame of mind, we'll move to the next slide. And so telephone systems and our mission. What Liz and I are trying to do today is to connect those two things and provide some very practical options for us to consider. And as well, you'll see our theme through this will be, how does this make our encounters better? How can we improve our encounters? But also there has to be this collaboration between us and your teams. So of course, the phone system is the public face of the family of parishes. And it's an opportunity to encounter everyone, those we know and those we don't know, within our full boundary of our families of parishes. Achieve customer service and care excellence. I've put beside that, attend to an issue in 2 clicks, in quotes. So let me explain. There's 2 sides to attending to an encounter through the phone system. One, it can be a very efficient business transfer. Someone needs to speak to the business manager about an invoice that's not being paid. And those are straightforward incoming calls that they can either dial the extension directly or they can be transferred very easily to the business manager. But then there are others that are more pastoral and require more listening. And those you can't solve in 2 clicks. And so I don't mean to imply that all phone calls should be answered in 2 clicks. And by 2 clicks, I mean, if you think of a website and you're clicking through a website, you like to get to the information that you want in 2 clicks, if possible. So that's more about efficiency. But then if it's more pastoral in nature, it could lead to something when we think of phone systems, like I'll call it a listening ministry, for lack of a better word. And you get a caller that needs lots of time on the phone just to have a conversation. They may just be lonely. And there could be a ministry set up with volunteers that could be, their call could be actively transferred right through the phone system so that maybe the secretary who's very busy that day doesn't need to attend to that call in that moment. Okay, the other is caller complaints. No system is perfect. I'm sure there's complaints about our phone system, but it would be great if we could learn about those so that we can attend to them and do what we can about them. We can't fix everything. There are some complaints that are not fixable, but if there are some things that you can tell us about, that would be wonderful because we'd love to fix them. And so we want to configure the phone system to be welcoming and responsive. And as I said earlier, it's a collaboration amongst all of us. If you tell us how you need it to work, we'll do our best to make it so. It's kind of a double case of we don't know what we don't know and you don't know what you don't know. So the best way to do it is to come together and have a conversation. And we use a combination of best practice, but also recognize the unique needs of each family of parishes. Okay, and I think with that, I will pass it on to Liz, who's going to walk you through some very practical things that we can do.
Perfect, great, thanks, Rob. So when we think about the phone system as the public face to your audience, the customers or the parishioners, as it were, when we really think about like our own personal experiences with customer service, when we're calling, a telephone company or really anywhere, two of the most important things that jump out at me of like what I consider when I come away happy from a phone call is, was the person welcoming? Were they friendly? Did I feel comfortable, asking them my questions or getting the service from them? And then the second one is, did they provide the information I was looking for quickly? Or did I have to speak to 10 different people and wait on hold for 20 minutes, right? So using that as a benchmark is sort of where most of what you're about to see comes from. So the first option for how do we provide a welcoming experience is I sort of broke it down into 3 things that our phone system can help with. So the first one we have is live answer for incoming calls. And so what I mean by live answer is that when a parishioner calls the parish phone number, somebody answers the phone if it's during office hours. We do have the option of having it going straight into a menu, and it is employed in some places, but we really would like to encourage the experience of being able to get a hold of a live person when you need them during the day. The second point that I think is important for feeling welcome in your own sort of family of parishes is having a recognizable voice on the greetings. So right now I do a lot of the greetings and I love doing it. And I will continue to do so for those who are uncomfortable with it. But I would really like to encourage a volunteer, somebody that the parishioners can recognize, to do the greetings themselves. And then when they call that parish and they get the menu after hours, they hear a familiar voice. It makes them feel comfortable. It makes them feel at home. They know where they are. My voice sounds, professional, but they don't know who I am. So they're not really sure if they're calling the right place. The third point I have is utilizing the action of a warm transfer for callers and something called the buddy list, which I'll go into later on. So basically the warm transfer versus a cold transfer is if somebody calls and says, I'd like to speak to the pastor, you hit transfer and off they go. A warm transfer, if it's a particularly, touching subject or complicated situation, maybe it needs an introduction. Using a warm transfer means you call the person you're looking for first, you explain the situation to them, and then you bring that caller on the line with you. So all 3 of you are together. That way you say to the caller, hello, I have who you're looking for on the line with us. He's going to help you. He's familiar with the situation. So it really provides that extra element of care and ownership of the call for when the parishioners are needing us. So when we break those down, how the phone system itself can actually help facilitate a welcoming experience. So for the 3 points I had previously, we've got sort of a breakdown of features that the phone system has that you can utilize if needed. So for the live answer, we can automate all office hours, including lunch hours or breaks, or part-time parishes, or offices that are only open on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So utilizing a really specific live answer for your automated office hours can help the callers really know when they can get a hold of you, or not having to listen to the phone system ring and ring and ring before it goes into a menu. And then the use of ring groups. A ring group is a collection of extensions that I program for you of all the extensions or phones that you would like to ring when the call comes in. So obviously, the more phones that ring, the better chance the caller has is reaching somebody live. In these cases, we can really utilize ring groups because when there's families or parishes with multiple offices, perhaps they call one parish, for example, Windsor Lake St. Clair. They've got multiple offices. Some are English, some are French, some are both. And so I know we've got it set up right now where it rings first at St. Jerome, but if it's not answered there, then the call rolls over into St. Simon St. Jude, where Angela can answer the phone. So those are sort of some of the things that we can do, even across offices. So you don't even have to be sitting in the same room. The second one, for the office staff on the main menu, we've got two different ways that staff can update their greetings. There's a feature that we can use using star codes, and then there's the use of the dictation services. So the star codes is a new thing. It's something that we've just become aware of and have started using, allowing you to update your greetings in real time. And then the use of dictation services is what we've got in place now, where you dictate the file that you'd like and send it to us at IT to upload for you. So I'll touch more on how those two things differ and how to use those. And then the third point for the warm transfer is using the conference button instead of the transfer button, and utilizing our 7-digit direct dialing, which is something that I'm excited to share with you if you're unaware a little bit later on. And then the Watch Buddy list. So the Watch Buddy list is a really interesting feature that our phones have, where you can program the people that you'd like to watch so that you know whether they're in the office or out of the office or on the phone when a call comes in for them. This is really useful for people in the reception or the secretary position. Somebody calls and they like to speak with a specific person, but you don't know if they're on the phone, if they're busy, or if they're in their office. So knowing whether or not they're available before you transfer the call will really help, ignite that encounter with the sense of ownership and care, instead of just transferring into a mailbox where the person isn't sure if they're going to be called back or contacted. So going into the office hours and ring groups, this is a little bit of a call flow example. So a call comes in just to explain office hours. So if the system sees that the call comes in during the scheduled or designated office hours for that phone number, it will ring the phones inside the ring group as assigned. If somebody answers the phone, great, caller's connected, they get where they're going. If nobody is able to answer the phone at that point, it would go into the main customer service menu where they can make their selection for who they're looking for. If the call is outside of office hours, it goes straight into the menu, so the caller doesn't have to sit for 30 seconds and listen to 4 or 5 rings and then having it go into the menu. So it really, it's part of the efficiency of it, and it's letting them know that somebody is there right away, essentially. Either the phone is answered right away or it goes into the main menu. So that's a little bit on those. Rob, did you have anything you wanted to add, or is that?
Yes, just have to unmute myself. Thank you, Liz. Yeah, and so this is really where these are the kind of conversations we would have if you wanted to meet with us, where we could sort out these details and in particular what works best for you, because we do appreciate the situations. They can get complicated, as Liz was saying, with part-time office hours or different people covering different offices at different times. So this gives a really good idea of who you want to be able to answer the phones live, and recognizing there's challenges with just live answering in particular. So, and when we talk about the customer service menu, that's where you hear press 1 for mass times, press 5 for St. Vincent de Paul. If you know the 3-digit extension, please dial it now. So this is kind of a warm up to what it might look like at one of the meetings, should you choose to do that with us.
Perfect. Thanks, Rob. So the next one to touch on, and I know there's a lot of information here, and I'll go through it, and I'm not expecting you to remember exactly all of this information, but it's just an example of in the meetings that you have with us, here are some of the things we can discuss what works better for you. So using the feature codes, any phone, you dial star and then whatever the file number is as provided to you by us for the recording you wish to change. When you dial the star and then the file number, you hear on the phone the current greeting that's played. After that, it's just like recording your voicemail. It says press 1 to accept or press 2 to change. And it's just, again, like recording your own personal voicemail. The downfall of this particular way to change your greetings is that you have to do it in one shot. So in some cases, like the staff directories or the main menus or what have you, sometimes it's a fairly long script, especially at times like Christmas and Easter. That's when a lot more information is passed on over the menu because people want to know about the special masses and events that are happening in those seasons. So this can be very easy for quick, easy menu changes, but you'd have to be fairly confident to be able to do it in one shot. And maybe you can, but I do a lot of these and I can't. So just let you know, this is an option. The benefit of this feature code option, though, is that the greeting is changed in real time. So as soon as you save and accept that message and hang up the phone, the greeting on the menu is changed. So there's no time to wait. There's no, putting in the request and having to wait for it to go through. It's done immediately. So another benefit of using the feature codes to change the menu is, again, if it's something last minute. So most of the time, we get a lot of notice for special events and greetings and mass times changes, but sometimes it's so busy at your parishes that it just slips through the cracks and it's not until the night before that you need those menus changed. So unfortunately, we're not always available, and that can cause a delay or misinformation provided to your parishioners. So again, the benefit of using the feature codes is that it does change right away. For the dictation services, which is pretty much what we have in place now for those parishes that do prefer to have their own greetings. What it is essentially is you're dictating a message, a greeting to yourself, and then saving it and emailing it to us. So the benefit of the dictation services is that you can pause and restart playback. So you can say a chunk of your menu, pause it, listen to it, and then you can restart at the end and continue on. So this dictation service method is a lot easier for longer staff directories or longer messages, or if there's different information that you'd like to have, and it's not something that's easy to do in one shot, one take. So the drawback of the dictation services is that after you've recorded the greeting, you then press star 35 and that emails the file number to IT. And so we're not always at our desks, right? And so sometimes there's a 1 to 2 or longer business day turnaround, depending on what we've got going on and what time of year it is and that sort of thing. So being able to have your own voice on the menu, we can really utilize both of these options based on what you're needing at the time. If you need it done right now, feature codes. If it's a longer message and you have time and to wait for it to be uploaded, dictation services. Of course, I'm still happy to do the greetings for you, absolutely. Not every parish is going to have somebody who's comfortable with that, but even if you've got a volunteer or somebody familiar in the parish that people would recognize on the menu, even that can work. So just wanted to share that information with you. Again, Rob, is there anything that you wanted to add, or did that cover most of it?
Yeah, I think the system greetings in general are something that we've had some, I guess, stock scripts, if you will. So this is, welcome to the London East Central family of parishes, and all the words that we're used to hearing. And maybe they've gotten a little dusty or a little tired, and maybe we can reinvent them or find words that make it more welcoming and so on. I mean, it is just a phone system, and it's not the thing that's going to ultimately make people feel welcome. But if maybe a little bit of reconfiguring of the language that we use could be helpful. So again, going back to, if you wanted to get together, we'd work through that, and there could be different members of your team that could help form those words, and we can record those scripts. And if there's one family really gets it bang on, maybe we can share the knowledge with others so that everyone can benefit from a different style, if you will.
Yes, exactly. So now the thing I'm most excited to share with you. So it has come to my attention that not everybody knows that being on the diocesan VoIP system means that you can be in direct contact with any other user of the diocesan VoIP system. So diocesan offices, canonical services, the refugee ministry, and all the families of parishes that are using the VoIP system, they all follow the same 7-digit extension format. And you can reach somebody at a different parish or institution simply by dialing 7, their parish number, and then that person's local 3-digit extension number. So this saves so much time. You don't have to call the main phone number of an office, speak to the secretary, ask for the pastor. You can just dial their extension directly from wherever you are. So the format, every extension across the diocesan VoIP system starts with the number 7. It's then followed by whatever that particular center's number is. For parish numbers, they're all available on the public directory. You can see what parish number it is. The diocesan center is 3 zeros. And then everybody has like a 3-digit extension that they use, and that's forward-facing, presenting to the customers or parishioners on your customer service menus. So knowing that, taking the number 7 as always the first number, plus the 3 zeros of the diocesan center, and my own 3-digit extension 250, any of the VoIP users out there across the diocese can reach me directly at my desk by dialing 7000250. So I think it's exciting. It's going to save so many people so much time. So if we break this down, just to let you know, in addition to the 7-digit extension, as a fun fact, families of parishes all follow roughly the same extension structure. I say roughly because not every family is structured exactly the same. Some families have 1 pastor, 1 associate pastor, some have 4. Some people have 1 deacon, some people have 6. Some people have 1 receptionist or administrative assistant, some people have 3. So it can shuffle, but the general format is the same. So for 200 is how you would reach a receptionist. So knowing that we wanted to reach a receptionist somewhere in the diocese, we would just have to dial 7, whatever the 3-digit extension number or parish number is, and then 200, and we'll always get the secretary. For 222, for the pastors, 223, associate pastors, and so on and so forth. So knowing this information, we can theoretically reach whoever we need to using the 7-digit dialing. So here I've got 3 different examples. If we wanted to reach the pastor at St. Joseph River Canard, easy, 7736222. If we wanted to speak with Mo at St. Agnes in Chatham, we'd call 7506200. Or even the associate pastor at St. Benedict in Sarnia, 7412223. So in some cases, people have their extensions listed in their emails. In other cases, it will be helpful to access our master VoIP directory. So this is something that I can't share with you because it hasn't been published yet, but it will be published this week. So it's put together. We're just working on the details of your access to it. And once it's published, we'll send an email out to the VoIP users and explain exactly where to go. This will list all of the internal 7-digit extensions for all staff on the VoIP system. So what we're hoping can become a best practice for everybody in the Diocesan VoIP Center is including not only your 3-digit extension, but your 7-digit extension in your email signature. So they're sending this out to somebody that's not within the diocese. It will not have too much impact. For those people will not understand what that number is, essentially. But putting it in brackets at the end of your phone number and contact information, for those using the VoIP system, they will easily be able to recognize what that number is and its purpose, and save you the trouble of having to dial 519-433-0658, speaking with Phil, and asking Phil to transfer to Rob, or if it's after hours, dialing his extension just 237 from the directory. So this would allow you to call him directly. So again, we do strongly encourage putting that in there. So Rob, is there anything else that you wanted to talk to about the 7-digit dialing before we move on to the conferencing?
Related to it, so just going back a little bit, and you don't have to go to the slide, Liz, the office hours and the ring groups, you can see now that we understand the 7-digit extension. You can not only call within your family very easily, but you can call across the diocese very easily. And we would like to maybe imagine with you some kind of ideas around, maybe we can do call transfers by role, say by pastoral minister. And so I guess I'm just putting a little bit of a plug in here for a little bit of dreaming about ways you think we can be creative now that we have this way of reaching out to each other by dialing the extension. And Liz has got some more examples coming along the way of some other problems we'd like to try to solve with you.
Great, thanks. So the third point I had in providing a welcoming experience or a welcoming encounter with your parishioners is the use of a warm transfer versus a cold transfer. So I'm sure we've all had experiences in calling customer care. We speak with a representative and we tell them our problem and they say, oh, that's not my department. I'll get you to IT. I'll get you to technical support. I'll get you to billing, accounting, wherever it is. And then they put you on hold, and all of a sudden you're either listening to hold music or you're talking to somebody, but you're explaining yourself again. And then that person says, oh, no, that's not me. And they do the same thing over and over again. And by the end of it, you've been on the phone for 20 minutes and you're super frustrated because nobody seems to care about what you're calling about, and you're still waiting to get your issue resolved or attended to. So this isn't going to be the case in every single phone call that you take, but I would like to strongly encourage, in those situations that require a little bit more tenderness, a little bit more attentiveness, and a little bit more care and ownership, to use this feature. So if we use the conference button or the conference soft key on the screen instead of the transfer button, what that does is allow us to speak with the initial caller, understand what they're looking for, what help they need. Then you place them on hold by pushing conference, speak with the person that will handle whatever it is they're calling about, explain the situation and any pertinent details or sensitive information. Then instead of just blindly transferring, what you do is you push conference again and bring everybody together on the line. So there's the 3 of you there. What this allows you to do is tell the caller, I have the person who can handle this for you on the line. They've already understood what they need to do and they'll take care of it from here. At this point, you can hang up and that phone call will continue. So why this is important is, and how it provides a welcoming encounter, is it lets the caller know that their issue is being taken seriously, that you care about the outcome of the phone call. They feel like they're taken care of. And so in the situation where it's so important to provide a welcoming feeling to people that are calling, especially those that aren't necessarily like part of it yet, part of the parish, if they're calling, you know, they're interested in it, then this helps them feel comfortable. Everybody needs to feel like they belong. It's the welcoming encounter that this can help provide in those situations where it requires a little bit more sensitivity. So in addition to the warm transfer, part of this actually is like, sometimes you don't know who's in the office. So we've got a feature that your phone can do. It's not really widely known, but it's called a buddy list. So on your phone, I'll explain. So the buddy list is a list of users whose status or present you can monitor. Users can update their presence setting for letting you know whether they're there or busy or on the phone. And you can view their status in real time from your phone. You can watch the status of up to 8 other phones or 48 buddies. These other phones form your buddy list. Your phone displays the status of your buddies in real time. Your phone can be watched by up to 8 other phones. So where this is great is in those examples where receptionist takes a phone call and they'd like to speak with somebody, and it's important they speak to them. And you don't know if that person's in the office or on the phone or available. And so using your phone in real time, you can take a look at your buddy list and see the status of the person that the caller is looking for. So the important part of using this feature is that everybody in the office has to agree to use it in order for it to be maximum impact, essentially. So by default, your phone will be listed as online. If you are on the phone, it will be indicated to the person watching you whether you change your status or not. So not everybody has to use the status update. Obviously, the more people that use it, the more helpful it will be. But if the receptionist receives a call looking for a pastor, the receptionist doesn't know if that pastor is in the office or he might be on the phone, all she has to do is look at her buddy list, and as long as he's in her directory list, it'll show whether he's there or on the phone or not. And that will allow her to provide real-time information to the caller. So here's the user guide example of how to change your own personal presence settings on your phone. So you press menu, features, presence, my status. All you have to do is change your status to either online, busy, be right back, or away, and press select. So then anybody that has you saved in their buddy list can see your status. So for those who are in and out of the office a lot, this can be a super helpful tool. So the way that you create your buddy list is going through your directories. So when you add or delete a contact to your buddy list, all you have to do is push your directories button, enter a contact in there with their extension and their name, and then scroll down to Watch Buddy. If you enable the Watch Buddy field on that directory contact, your phone will now have that person in your buddy list. And if it's in your buddy list, that's one of the people that you can look at to see if they're on the phone. On most phones, most users have either a larger, older 501 or a newer, larger 550. Those phones have 4 line buttons. The top 2 are taken up by your extension, and then the bottom 2 are usually saved for speed dials. Whoever you have in your directory come up on those speed dials. So if there's somebody that receives transfers most frequently listed in as a speed dial on one of those buttons, the light beside it will light up when that phone is in use, letting you know that they're on the phone just by looking at your phone. If you have more than 2 buddies to watch, all you have to do is select the menu, go to your buddy list, and you can see everybody's status. This is, of course, not something that you should feel obligated to use, but it is a tool of the phone system that can be helpful in the ease of the use for you. So I know it can feel kind of tricky or like there's too much information, and that's fine. The idea isn't to give you a detailed webinar on exactly how to use the buddy feature or that you have to, but it's just letting you know that it's there. all this information, these screenshots, I pulled from the user guide for the phones, and I'm more than happy to share that with anybody who needs it. I'm more than happy to sit down with anybody, either in a group format or one-on-one, to go through it if you want to utilize your phone as the tool that it is. I feel that most people don't know that their phones can do these things, or how to do it, or they feel intimidated because there's so many buttons and so many options and nobody knows how to use it. So that's where it's important, as Rob and I are saying, to reach out, right? Like your phone, just like your email, just like Microsoft 365, all of the SharePoint, all of those calendars, DDMS, these are tools that we provide to you to use to give the best encounter to the people that come into your radius, the people that come into your parish or call your parish. So just as your email is a tool for communication, so is your phone. So this is just an example of something that can be used. Rob, you're nodding. Anything to add?
Yeah, it's just to highlight what I said earlier was you don't know what you don't know, and we don't know what we don't know. So this buddy feature could solve a problem that you have that would make it much easier to manage encounters, or not. It's not a mandatory feature that needs to be used. But in a similar vein, you may describe a problem that you're having or something that's not working very well, but you don't know what feature of the phone system could potentially solve that. Then that's where we come in. And that's why it would be great to have a conversation or a meeting where you can say, we'd love to do this with our phone system. And then we'll tell you what you don't know. And maybe we don't even know, but we might be able to find out for you.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to go back one step to the warm transfers. This is just anecdotal on my part, but baptismal certificates, I understand, can really be a challenge sometimes when people are calling in looking for them. And so this could be an example where if you've gotten someone that's really struggling to find what they're looking for so they can get married or for their child or something like that, you could do a warm transfer to the archives department, because I understand sometimes the calls need to go there. I'm not sure that Deborah would appreciate me saying this right now, but it's part of managing good encounters.
I'm sure she would. She loves it.
So that's just an example of how we can kind of open things up to help people get the answers in as few clicks as possible, if I could say it that way.
Right, and you can warm transfer to Deborah by finding her 7-digit extension on the master VoIP directory as it's published. So even then, easy access to Deb in the archives for information that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of these things, these tools, these options that the phone system has can help you provide the welcoming encounter and giving them that feeling of family, of welcoming, of belonging. So the other part of what excellent customer care looks like, the second half, is providing that information quickly. So so 3 points that sort of I've come up with talk about today about how the phone system can help you provide assistance efficiently, is it can help you provide better access to personnel. Since COVID, especially, almost nobody's in the office full time. Everybody is out and about. I'm working from home right now. So having better access to those people that you're looking for when you're calling a parish is imperative, especially if it's time sensitive, especially if you're new and you're unsure and you need to talk to somebody. Having overall better access to what you're looking for is imperative. So the second part of that kind of ties into the better access is providing direct extensions for auxiliary staff and for volunteers. These are people that are not necessarily in the office all the time. It's not counting your administrators and your pastoral ministers. These are people like custodians, etc. And we'll talk more on that also. And then the third point would be for St. Vincent de Paul. So we've had a couple of conversations with people recently regarding St. Vincent de Paul, and it feels like the phone system can be utilized to provide a better experience for those in need when they're looking for assistance. So we'll go into that in detail also. So the first one is the better access to personnel. Basically, we can use voicemail to email. I think most of you are familiar with that feature, receiving an MP3 file in your email when you get a voicemail. Very convenient. The second one is Find Me, Follow Me. So Find Me, Follow Me is a feature that allows the phone system to ring multiple extensions or multiple extensions and an outside phone number, like your cell phone number, when your extension is particularly dialed. For the extensions for volunteers, this is providing what we call virtual extensions. And those virtual extensions don't need a phone on a desk. They can be voicemail only with voicemail to email employed, or it can be a direct forward to a cell phone number. So it's easy to reach those people. And then for the St. Vincent de Paul streamline, direct transfers for correct boundaries, I feel, is going to be imperative. So we all know that St. Vincent de Paul has specific boundaries for who they can help. And I believe that the St. Vincent de Paul organization isn't necessarily concerned with the boundaries when they provide a phone number for a parish. And sometimes that's on the parish to connect them with the right group. And so utilizing the 7-digit extensions that we've spoken about can really help with this. And then the second point for St. Vincent de Paul is accurate voicemail setup. So there's some cases where I know I've set up a St. Vincent de Paul voicemail box and for somebody to use, and then 3 months down the road, I get an email saying, our St. Vincent de Paul people are complaining that nobody can get a hold of them. And it's because nobody set up the voicemail accurately, essentially. So I can initiate the service, I can put it in place, but it's up to those people or those volunteers or those within the parish who handled the situation or are related to it to actually get that set up and email to the right person. So we're going to talk about the benefits of voicemail to email. So for those who don't know, you can be notified of voicemail via computer or cell phone if you've got your email there while you're away from your desk. You don't have to call in to check your messages. You don't have to be at your desk to watch the light flashing to know that you have a voicemail. You can respond to those voicemails much more quickly than having to come in and see your light flashing and calling in to check your voicemails. And the best thing about voicemail to email, I think, is that an email of the MP3 can be sent to as many recipients as you like. So there are some, even St. Vincent de Paul, for touch on that briefly, but there's some situations where voicemails left need to go to multiple people. Multiple people manage the mailbox. And so using the voicemail to email feature, it can send that voicemail to everybody on the list that you provide me. And that way, if somebody's on vacation or unavailable, that message can still be received by those who can action on it. So the benefits of Find Me, Follow Me, the second point for better access to personnel, and I think a lesser utilized feature of the phone system is that you can receive phone calls to multiple extensions or to outside phone numbers. So for me personally, I have a phone at my desk in the office. I have a phone at my desk right here, and I have my cell phone. So my job, sometimes I'm at the office, sometimes I'm here, and sometimes I'm on site. But the way I have my personal extension set up with Find Me, Follow Me is you just have to dial my office phone extension 250 using the 7 digits, it's 730-250. And if I'm not at my desk, it will also ring this phone and it will also ring my cell phone. So you don't have to have my cell phone number to be able to reach me while I'm not at my desk, while I'm on site in Windsor or Stratford or anywhere else. You just have to know one extension. How this can apply to families is, especially in families with multiple offices, sometimes pastors are at one office and sometimes they're at another office. and they don't have a particular schedule of what day they're where. They just kind of like flow where they're needed between the locations. So if somebody knows to dial one extension for you, and maybe you're at the other location, if we set the Find Me, Follow Me to ring both phones, it doesn't matter where you are, you'll still receive that phone call. So it can be really helpful. And then again, yeah, multiple locations. So you can either have the phone ring simultaneously, or you can have it cascade. And what I mean by cascade is one phone first, the next phone number second if that phone's not answered, and so on and so forth. Me personally, all my phones ring if someone calls my desk phone right away out of the gate. But if you want it to ring your desk for 20 seconds before it calls your cell phone, we can do that also. So what this provides the person that's calling is a better opportunity to connect with the person that they're looking for, without somebody having like a secretary or somebody having to chase them between locations. So no, he's at the Basilica today. No, he's at St. Michael's today. Okay, well, I'll call the Basilica, or I'll call St. Michael's. It doesn't matter. The extensions are linked.
Mm-hmm. And we have a family too that in this specific example, 2 offices, and their schedule as to where they're going to be is changing. It's just another example of what Liz has already said, but no one needs to know where they are when you're the caller. It doesn't matter. The phone system will find them and they'll be able to answer the call with one click, basically.
Exactly. So the second point on the providing assistance quickly. And I feel like there's so many different ways that each family or parish in particular handles their volunteers or their groundskeepers or their nurses. And, you know, how do you currently, or how does somebody reach your parish hall manager? So some examples of auxiliary staff and volunteers who I'm talking about, you know, we have parish nurses. They don't have a phone necessarily or an office, but maybe somebody needs to reach them. Whoever manages the Knights of Columbus, whoever manages their Catholic Women's League. We have a lot of volunteer committee chairs for building committees and finance committees that don't have an office because they're not full-time staff, but they still need to be reached quickly and efficiently. We also have a number of smaller Catholic communities inside each family. You know, we've got, you know, the Vietnamese and other like small specific languages that operate out of main parishes, but aren't like they're a separate sort of entity within them. So they don't have offices there, but what if they need to be reached by somebody, especially, you know, Rob and I were talking about immigration earlier. So there's a lot more people coming into this country that don't speak English, and they're going to be looking for, you know, a welcoming place where they can reach somebody who speaks their language or who offers the sermons and the masses in the language that they're looking for, that they're familiar with. So these are the people that I'm talking about when I say auxiliary staff and volunteers. So we would like you to know that you can give them extensions that are virtual. It's and why is this a better way to do it instead of providing personal phone numbers or emails or any of that? So a lot of people don't necessarily want their personal cell phone numbers known, as priests especially. But I know they have their own extension, but that's why the Find Me, Follow Me is useful. But for volunteers, you know, maybe the hall manager doesn't want everybody to call them, you know, directly on their phone. The second point is that those positions, especially the volunteers, can have a higher turnover. So if you're used to calling a specific cell phone number to speak to the hall manager, or to speak to the parish nurse, but that role changes hands, you call that old phone number and that person has to explain, no, I don't do that anymore, call this phone number. Or you call the office and the office has this old phone number for the previous volunteer, but it's not that number anymore, and you have to update your listing and your directories. It can get very confusing and muddled, and takes a lot of effort, essentially. A lot of energy is put into that when the turnover happens. So if you assign a specific extension, a virtual extension with no phone attached to a role, a volunteer role or a committee chair, that extension number can remain the same even if that position's staff changes. So you don't have to provide a different number. You don't have to change all your directories. You don't have to worry about those people being reached when they're no longer being volunteered or in that position. It also makes contacting them very easy. So when you receive a phone call for one of your auxiliary staff and you either have to transfer and dial their full phone number, or you say, no, hang up and call this phone number, that doesn't enable you to take customer care, right? First thing, it is not a welcoming encounter. It's nope, I can't help you here, hang up, call this number. It puts it back on them. And it takes time for them so they can receive what they're looking for right away. And it also, it's like a 1-2 punch, provides a welcoming encounter that you're being taken care of. So for the virtual extensions that come with, what we're saying for the auxiliary staff, there's 2 ways that they can receive their calls. And we do this a lot for deacons also, because most of the time deacons don't have desks. So either they can have it go straight to voicemail when that extension is dialed straight into voicemail, and that voicemail is sent via email to whoever's email address it goes to, or in some cases it can go directly to an outside phone number, but it can't do both. And the reason why is that as soon as we direct forward to a cell phone number, that call is now out of our system. And if that person doesn't answer their cell phone, it will go to their cell phone email or voicemail. And we can't control the voicemail to email feature on a personal cell phone, unfortunately. So in providing a direct extension for all of those people that don't necessarily have an office or a space or a desk, it gives everybody, it gives those auxiliary staff a feeling of inclusivity, like they're really part of the team. And B, it gives the outside callers an easy way to reach them. And then those people, those auxiliary staff, have an option between whether they just want an email with an MP3 and they'll call that person back, or if they like to take the phone call in real time, you can have it sent to their cell phone. Rob, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, that's great, Liz. That covers it. I think I'm looking forward to the St. Vincent de Paul section.
Yeah. So it does go into our conversation about St. Vincent de Paul. And so when we say managed in various ways across the diocese, I don't think, well, like, are no two the same? I think there's a few of them that are aligned the same, but I find, and again, this is a lot in what we receive from the St. Vincent de Paul organization. There's only so much we can do with what they're providing to people in need, right? So we can't be concerned with necessarily the information St. Vincent de Paul is providing them. Our job is to receive that call and make sure that the person calling for assistance receives that assistance in a welcoming way. Because providing a welcoming experience, especially to those people in need, it could allow them to be curious, more curious about what else and what other sort of feelings of inclusivity that the parish can offer, and information in the evangelization of that type of person or those in need, right? So there's sort of when we do a family of parish merge, when we bring everybody together, multiple parishes have St. Vincent de Paul and they're different boundaries. And so we can't lump them all into one menu. So what we've started to do is make St. Vincent de Paul the press 5 option inside their menu. So when the customer or when the person in need calls and gets to the IVR, the customer service menu, they hear, for St. Vincent de Paul food assistance, press 5. Here's just an example of somebody who's got this set up, a family has got this set up, where they then hear, for St. Vincent de Paul at Simcoe St. Mary, press 1. For St. Vincent de Paul at Our Lady of Queen of Martyrs in Delhi, press 2. And for St. Vincent de Paul in Port Dover for St. Cecilia, press 3. These then just transfer straight into a voicemail box that goes to voicemail to email and get sent to those particular people that handle the boundaries. Now, that brings up a conversation I think Rob, you wanted to make a point about. So in regards to the boundaries and how this is done and if there's a better way to do it.
Yeah, and this is the part where Liz and I really need help to sort through this. We think the phone system can help. We don't know exactly how that configuration looks and what it can be. And this to me is an example where we've got people in the diocese that are calling and they just need to know, they just know they need food assistance or help with their rent or whatever it might be. And this to me falls in the category of let's try and do this in 2 or 3 clicks. Get them to where they need to be as quickly as they can. So this setup that Liz has presented is probably not the best way, because then the caller needs to know, well, let's see, I don't know which boundary I'm in, or I don't know which church, so they may just pick a number. Or maybe I don't even know what I'm talking about, and maybe it's just a little more clear cut than we imagine it to be. And so this is our opportunity to encounter people that are in need. And so how do we best tune the tool that is our phone system to make it as easy as possible for them? I can only imagine that for some it's hard to make that call in the first place. So let's not make it any harder than it needs to be. So this is where a collaboration can come in. Liz has met with a number of the families, and it's done in different ways. And most recently we met with one of the new families, and we're thinking it through with them and how to best do it and how to solve the boundary issue. And I'm speaking with no background knowledge here, but maybe there's a way to engage St. Vincent de Paul somehow. I don't know. This is where we need help trying to sort this out, so that we can provide the best interface on our phone system. Because I imagine it's either walk-ins or phone calls that are the primary contact. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say. This is not a cast in stone. This is how everybody has to do it. It's not even a best practice. It's just how it's being handled now, and we'd love to find out how to do it better.
Exactly. I know we did hear from one of the recent families that sometimes when people call, during the office hours, and they say they answer the phone with the parish or the family name, and the person who's looking for assistance doesn't even know they've called a parish. They just think they're looking for assistance. They don't know that it's the parishes necessarily that provide it. And so we do invite you, if you've got ideas or ways that you think that we can improve on this process, we would love to hear it, because I think this is something that that we as a diocese can provide better for those in need. Mm-hmm. So on the topic of boundaries and somebody calling and saying, oh, well, no, you're at this address, so you need to talk to this parish, or you need to talk to that parish. So instead of providing the phone number of that parish, I think you can probably guess what I'm going to say. You can use the 7-digit direct dialing. So this isn't all of them. This is just an example of all the St. Vincent de Paul extensions that are currently within the diocese. So this will be published alongside with the Master VoIP extension later on this week. And again, we'll be sending out an email when that's ready for you. So for those of you that do take phone calls for St. Vincent de Paul and run into boundary issues, or having that person, needing to talk to a different area or a different parish, this is a great way to take ownership of that call, provide a welcoming encounter, and do it quickly. So all you have to do is utilize warm transfer or call over or transfer them directly into the voicemail box where they need to go. And here's a list of the direct extensions if you know where the boundaries are. So I know sometimes when you receive these calls, or receive a lot of these calls, the tendency is to just say, nope, that's not us, call this person, and you hang up the phone, right? So what we'd really like to encourage you to do is knowing that you now have a list of direct extensions, instead of just providing the phone number for the parish where they maybe reside, you can get them directly into the right area that you're looking for, and take ownership of that for them, so they don't have to call back, they don't have to get the runaround and not know who they're talking to. So in the second part of the St. Vincent de Paul Streamline topic, and this ties into just sort of our own best practices also, we wanted to talk about some of the essential elements of a good voicemail greeting. So some of the options we have are a short, upbeat greeting, something cheery, your name, your family of parishes, the statement that you're unable to take the call, and asking them to leave a message, to let them know when they should expect to hear from you, and provide a contact for immediate assistance if they need it, whether it be a specific parish name or office or what have you, but also put all of that information into something very short. So being succinct with your information is imperative to get all of that in there, but it's all very important information that that you need to have, especially for those who manage the St. Vincent de Paul boxes, requesting them to leave exactly the information that they're looking for, perhaps requesting what they need to leave can also be helpful.
There may be a really good example out there already, and we can just maybe steal their great work already.
Yeah, if someone knows of a good one, let us know and we'll share it. So the next steps.
Okay, so Liz, thank you. There's a lot of, I think, a lot of good practical examples in there. And just to reiterate yet one more time, it was just our effort to present how we can have good encounters, have caring encounters, provide excellent care to everyone that calls and joins in with us, and that we need to do this together with you. The phone system, it doesn't matter, except that it allows us to get information and connect people together. That's all it's good for. And it's just a tool. It's not important. And that's why I needed those reminders in those first slides to remember that it's just a phone system, but it can really be a benefit to us. And so in terms of next steps, we're really just at the beginning. I'm really hoping for lots of conversations after this and lots of practical co-created strategies, if you will, or solutions, so that to the benefit of everyone. We get the benefit of working with all of the families of parishes across the diocese. And that's sort of where our brief insight into the St. Vincent de Paul situation came from. We saw it handled in multiple ways, and we thought, boy, if anybody that's calling that's in need, if their experience was consistent across our diocese, wouldn't that be a wonderful thing? So this is just a brief recap, very brief recap of the details that we've covered. But, again, we encourage you to put your VoIP extension in your email signature. Remember, you can do inter-parish call transfers. So this isn't just about, you need to reach somebody at another parish. As we talked about with the example for the baptismal certificate, to say, you can transfer that caller to either St. Vincent de Paul or to the archives for the baptismal certificate. And so as you become more familiar with the extensions and the ability of who's doing what, you can make those transfers and minimize the number of clicks that people will encounter so that they're connected to the right person. This is also true of the virtual extensions that Liz talked about. I can't even imagine what it's like when you're at your desk all day, feeling all those calls that are coming in, trying to manage them and transfer them and so on. And so if we can make sort of the business-like call transfers easy, but the more calls that are pastoral in nature or need for care, make those encounters smoother and the people know that they ended up where they needed to be. And of course, the VoIP directory will be a great tool to help with this. As Liz said, we'll be publishing that this week, and we'll share the information about how to get access to that. I want to state again, it's important that we know about any complaints you get about the phone system, either from your own staff or from callers to the system. I know a personal experience. I have a gentleman, an elderly gentleman that I assist once a week, and he only has a black dial rotary phone and no voicemail. And his perpetual comment is that when I call these systems, I can't get anybody on the phone. It always ends up being a voicemail. So examples like that, we want to care for this individual, but he kind of feels left out because he's just got a rotary phone and that's it. Wrap it all up but just by saying that we'd love to meet with you. Let either Liz or I know, and it's a collaboration. It's not a top-down, here's how the phone system works, this is much what you can do. I think probably Liz and I have more to learn from you than you do from us. So that's kind of summarizes it, but I'd like to leave us all with something to think about. And I don't know if this is opening a can of worms or poking the bear, but these are some of the things we can start to think about as we become more familiar with and improve upon our systems. So Liz talked about system greeting updates and practically how you can do those updates, but it's also about the content of those greetings. Right from if they end up getting the system greeting that says, welcome to the Erie Tri-County family of parishes, and what comes after that, even as what's the most important order. I think we've heard some comments that the emergency part of the press 9 for an emergency is at the very end. So we want to make sure that we order things in the right fashion as well. St. Vincent de Paul call handling between parishes, I think we've talked about that, which again, it's an encounter with those in need. Setting up volunteers, Liz, I think, did a great job talking about how we can set them up better so that they have the right tools they need for the kinds of encounters that they will be having, whether it's the building committee or this visitation or listening ministry, as I called it earlier, whatever it might be. In fact, yesterday we received an email requesting an email for a volunteer at a particular family of parishes. So we're going to work through what that looks like. Similarly, with the phone system, we can do the same thing, like for emails. Pressing 9 for an emergency, it's a standard best practice feature that we have for all of our VoIP systems. But recently we had a meeting where someone brought up a really good point, and that's why I share this. It's, you know, they had this feeling that if they press 9 for an emergency, because of 911 and the other emergency services, they thought we might be creating an expectation that they're going to get immediate assistance. And so you can imagine situations where anointing of the sick is required. And I'm sure you know a lot more examples than I do. So it's something that we'd like to take under consideration. And what really is the best way to get to those? And each community is different. In some of the smaller communities, there's just the parish priest. In some of the cities like London, you know, there's chaplains and there's all sorts of ways that people can get that. So this is an example of where we'd like to enter into some conversation about really what's the best way to do it. And then maybe that becomes a universal best practice, or maybe it varies depending on the community that you're in. A point I'd like to put up for consideration as well is call transfers based on language. Liz already mentioned this about, you know, trying to help people in the language that they speak and they're most comfortable in. So there's two ways within a family. I think we have a family that's got Polish, Italian, and well, of course, English, and maybe even one other language. So Liz has configured the system greetings so that people can choose which language they'd like to hear the message greetings in if they don't get someone on the phone when they call in right away. Now, on a diocesan-wide scale, imagine people calling in where we know people can speak Portuguese over here, or Vietnamese over here, or whatever it might be. And this would have to be very deliberate, and people would have to, you know, commit to doing this. But we could create welcoming encounters based on language by utilizing the talents across the diocese. That's a big kettle of fish, I know, but I just wanted to kind of poke the bear a little bit on that one and see if you think that idea has merit, because we don't want to build something that's not going to help. So we've got more functionality in the phone system than we've had time to share. So we'd like to hear from you about what other things you might imagine or what you need, much like that request that came in about a volunteer email. And I'd just like to close with an example. I have the benefit of working with my counterpart in the Archdiocese of Ottawa. We're learning from each other. We're trying to help each other with what we figured out and what they've figured out and so on. And he shared this story with me about his parish, one of his parishes, St. Mary's Parish in Ottawa. And I thought this really kind of illustrates what we're trying to do. So this parish actually uses DDMS, and they used DDMS to get a list of all the people, all their parishioners and so on. There are no families there yet. This was at the lockdown that started March of 2020. And they used that list of, good, accurate data that they've been keeping up to date. And they used to call everybody just to say hi in some cases, just to see if they needed something, if they were in distress, if they needed some form of counseling, if they needed some supplies dropped off, if their children were falling behind in school, and if there's any way that they could help them kind of catch up. And there was a number of other examples. And I thought, my goodness, it wasn't the phones that helped the people, and it wasn't DDMS that helped the people, but they were two of the tools that we had so that we could have a meaningful encounter with them in a way that allowed us to connect them. And I could even take it one step further. I don't think they did this, but if you have that encounter on the phone with someone, and there's important information that we really should record about that encounter, we can just put a quick note in DDMS about that encounter, of course, only for the appropriate people to see it and so on, based on the permissions that we have. But that would permit a capturing of information that could help us with the next encounter. So especially in the example where, Liz said, sometimes people change out of that role, but we still have what those encounters were, and we can look at them, remind ourselves, and then use that for our next encounter with them. So we have lots of tools, I think, at our hands that we can use to help improve with our encounters. But I thought that story was sort of illustrated what we're trying to do, but and we'd love for your help and thoughts on how to build things properly. And I
Thanks.
think that's everything.
Is that it? Okay, great. Thanks. Chrisandra just put in the chat that you can find the outreach campaign toolkit in the Nurturing Joy webpage, which ties into what Rob was just talking about, how to outreach to to individuals that maybe we haven't seen in some time. So I have a few questions. Liz, I saw that there was a question about whether or not the VoIP or the phone, what do you call them?
7-digit extension?
Yeah, can be used from someone outside the organization. Do you want to answer that so everyone can hear
Sure.
the answer?
So the answer is no. So that's it, the end. So the 7-digit extensions are only available from a VoIP phone. So from within the organization, if the callers are calling from outside, the only extensions that they'll be able to use are the 3-digit extensions that I program into your customer service menu.
Okay.
The 7 digits are only for inter-VoIP calls.
Got it.
That being said, it doesn't have to be a desk phone. For those analog phones, the old school phones that we use in places like rectories and sacristies and parish hall kitchens, those are also assigned 7-digit extensions. So if you're in a kitchen somewhere and you need to call the secretary, you can just dial the 7-digit extension to reach her. So because they're on VoIP devices that just translate it into those old analog phones.
Okay.
So
very cool.
that's the only exception, but any outside caller will not be able to use the 7-digit codes.
Great, thanks. I want to clarify something that Rob said at the beginning. So he talked about some of this coming out of listening sessions. So back in, I don't know, June, I think I did a couple of listening sessions with business administrators in parishes, so secretaries, business managers, financial secretaries, as well as some with some LEMs. And there were some key points that came out of those conversations so some of this has come out of those listening sessions. So when Rob talked about that, and one of them was this best practice, someone else suggested, I think it was a business manager, suggested the best practice of putting your 7-digit extension in your sign off on your email. So I have that in mind now. We started to use that. I think Joe has his. And I never even thought about it, to be honest with you, until I brought that up at a meeting that Rob was at. I didn't know it was an option. I didn't recognize that I could call anybody in the diocese who has a VoIP system. So that's very helpful.
Yeah.
One of the questions that I have is, so you talked about, I loved, Liz, that you talked about having the recognizable voice on the phone. I didn't realize you did a lot of those things, but it makes sense now.
Yeah.
That's you. And I love the idea of the recognizable voice for me. And I just do my little, phone thing. I'm going away. I'm on holidays starting tomorrow for another week. So I literally have my script ready to go, because otherwise I'm umming and ahhing through the entire thing. Is there a script template anywhere that people could utilize?
Yes. So in the creation of the families, one of the documents that I send out essentially is a VoIP call flow map. So when I present it to the families, I cater it specifically to the family itself. But what I've also done is actually created just a template. So that outlines how the menu is working, what goes where, and also all the file numbers. So because the file numbers are all mostly based, again, on your parish number. So, for Our Lady of the Assumption, all their file numbers start with 600,
Okay.
right? Or when we're setting up the Basilica right now, they're going to all start with 100. That's their parish number. So, Rob, is that something that we can make available along with the VoIP directories? Perhaps there's something that we can do for just a all things VoIP section that people can access.
That's a great idea. Some one-pagers even about how to do different things. Yep.
Yeah.
And I can put in the user guides too for the phones if anybody wants those.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because, and maybe this is just me sitting in my own little office here in Windsor. A lot of what you told me today, I didn't know we could do. Now, again, I'm not working within a family of parishes, but all I know is the magic of you call London and you can get me when you call London, and I'm actually in Windsor. So I often explain that to people. So when you talked, just for clarity's sake, you talked about the St. Vincent de Paul transfer. So once we have that list of VoIP numbers, what you're saying is, if someone were to call me in Windsor looking for some help, but they're actually in Leamington, if I have that number, I can literally connect them directly to that. Yes. I don't have to give them the phone number for Leamington. I can make that transfer myself.
Exactly. You can transfer them directly to the extension assigned to the Leamington St. Vincent de Paul.
Great. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Just a couple other things from my perspective. If there are any other questions, get them in fast because we're going to wrap up soon. But one of the things, Rob, you mentioned in one of your last two slides there was about the emergency. So right now it's the dial 9, but one of the things that I've heard in conversations that I've had is how important it is to make sure that that's not at the bottom of your list. And I don't know if there's but when you're actually in an emergency, your brain's not thinking right. And so to hang on till you get through the 7 other people in the directory or whatever it is, can be challenging. So making sure that they have that. And then I just want to reiterate the warm transfer. I told the story at the end of our last session while I was promoting this for today. I called a particular parish this week. I asked to speak to, Father whoever, and they literally just transferred me. Like, they hit the transfer button. They didn't say, okay, hang on, or I'm transferring your call, or and it's fine for me. It still felt a bit cold and impersonal. I can't imagine what that would be like if you were, someone just calling from the outside. So just a note. Yeah. So a couple of things here. One of the questions is, how does the St. Vincent de Paul volunteer retrieve messages from that 7-digit number?
So there is a couple of different ways. So if it's just a voicemail box that the St. Vincent de Paul has set up, and it's going to be different based on, location, right? Each St. Vincent de Paul volunteer has a different way they handle it, but they can either call in to the system and enter a star code and their password to do that, which is a little bit involved. But what we would encourage them to do is set up voicemail to email. So just so you guys know, you can call yourself, your own extension, from any outside phone, from anywhere. And as soon as your voicemail picks up with your voice saying, hey, you've reached whoever, I'm not available, you can interrupt that message by pushing *985. And then it asks you for the mailbox number, at which point you enter your extension number, at which point it asks you for your password, you put that in, and boom, you're in your mailbox. But like, even explaining that was long-winded. So for a St. Vincent de Paul volunteer to have to go through that every time to find the messages that have been left for them there, it's involved. It's too much of an effort. People are lazy. And I don't mean that as like a bad way. It's just a statement of fact. Nobody wants to spend 20 minutes doing that, right? Myself included, which is why I have exclusively voicemail to email. So that's what we do encourage them to do. And in being able to have multiple email addresses, if there are multiple people managing the St. Vincent de Paul extension, right, then that message can go to all of them simultaneously.
Right. And IT would be able to set that up for them
easily. Yep.
Okay, good. One more question here, and then I'm going to do a little promo for what's coming up. Do you have a hard copy version of the explanations you have given us? So that was a little bit about, can we get some of this information in hard copy so we don't have to remember it all?
Yeah, I can answer that one. So I think that's going to speak to the where we're going to publish the VoIP directories and so on. We'll put electronic documents that you can print. You can download and print if you need a hard copy of that. But that's where we'll be directing those things. So
we will. So it's funny because you guys keep saying those are going out this week. You have 2 hours today and all of tomorrow. That's this week. No pressure, but
we're 98% there. It's just a little bit of tweaking.
All right, great.
Yeah, we have all it's like we're making a cake. We have all your ingredients. They're ready to go. We just have to put them in the oven.
All right, that's awesome. I'm excited to get that. I will, as I'm going to share screen here to promo what's coming up, but I also want to just encourage probably a best practice to regularly review your message. So that, sometimes we forget what we put on. How many times have I gotten a message saying, Claire, your vacation message is still up from 3 months ago, or, so regularly reviewing your message so that you're making sure that there are not things on there that are obsolete and out of date. So just a little promo. Next week, Rob will be back, but next week he'll be back with Erica, I believe. To go over some DDMS best practices. And again, we will leave some time for Q&A on that because it's a big topic and there's lots to cover, and it's super important in terms of it's a great tool for us to be able to use. Finally, I just want to do a real quick promo. Our next series of webinars will be lunchtime webinars specifically directed to those people who work with family and youth. The first one will be on basic strategies for family and youth ministry. The second one will be on sacramental prep, and then finally engaging families. They will, you can see the dates there. And those are up, I believe, on the family and youth ministry site and also on the ongoing formation site for the diocese. So Liz, you answered that last question. Great. It was about the phone systems don't work when the internet is down because they work through the internet. I think that's a pretty simple explanation. It's frustrating when that happens, but it's one of the realities.
It's important to know though, the phone system's still answering the calls and they're going to voicemail. It's just that the phone through a parish is just not online.
Great. Good to know. All right. Oh, look, there's another question. Oh, that was just a thank you. You're welcome, Francie.
You're welcome.
All right. Thanks again, everybody. We will see you next week. Again, these webinars are now available online. If you go to the dol.ca/ongoing formation, I believe, you'll find them there. All right. And I'll send you an email as well. Take care. Have a great week. We'll see you next Thursday.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.